Chapter 58 Immortal Cultivator. Kek. Speaking of which, I am also a victim. The moment he opened his mouth to speak, Yu Jitong tried to get Han Li's sympathy, doing his best to downplay the relationship between him and Dr. Mo, even to the point of breaking all ties. However, his act was in vain. Han Li was not moved at all. Without much of an option, Yu Jitong had no choice but to continue explaining. Originally, I was an immortal cultivator. Yu Jitong honestly told Han Li about his history, explaining every details about the circumstances from how he got to know Dr. Mo to how he ended up in his current state. Of course, in his tale, he made himself out to be the victim in the story, pushing all responsibilities and negative connotations onto the head of the dead Dr. Mo. After all, dead men tell no tales. Han Li naturally would not completely believe what he had said. But comparing the story he just heard, alongside with Dr. Mo's words back when he was still alive, Han Li deduced that about 70 to 80% of the story he just heard was true. It was highly improbable but not totally impossible for the circumstances to occur as they had. After removing parts of the story that seemed inconceivable, Han Li already had a rough understanding of the truth. From what Han Li understood, regarding his past, Dr. Mo had no reason to lie to him. The stories he heard from Dr. Mo, that he got ambushed and decided to search for ways to regain his original powers and appearance, should be true. There was no need for Dr. Mo to lie to him about that. However, Han Li recalled that Dr. Mo told him earlier that he discovered a mysterious book that outlined a way to regain his vitality. After considering all that transpired, Han Li decided that the story was false, because it does not match with what Yu Jitong had said. Ultimately, Dr. managed to regain his youth because of Yu Jitong, yet, he was also cursed because of Yu Jitong. Originally, Yu Jitong was a member of a cultivation clan. He had managed to cultivate the eternal spring arts to the 7th level. It could be said that he had some expertise, but ultimately, because of his limited talent, he made no advancement in the eternal sprint arts and thus was unable to meet the requirements to enter the foundation establishment stage. Cultivators who were not at the foundation establishment stage could not be considered cultivators at all. At most, they could only be considered powerful mortals, halfway to the point of stepping into the realm of immortal cultivators. Because Yu Jitong was unable to achieve a breakthrough, he decided to explore the secular world for enlightenment, hoping to make a breakthrough in his state of heart, overcoming the bottleneck that forbade him from reaching foundation establishment stage. Of course, he hoped that he would be able to come across rare precious herbs so that he could concoct spiritual pills to aid him in his cultivation. However, he knew that the chance was slim at best. After all, it was only a matter of luck. With high hopes and expectations in his head, the 20-year-old Yu Jitong arrived at the place cultivators called the secular world. The captivating world out there was full of wondrous events and distractions, causing Yu Jitong to be dazzled and lost in their splendor. His original state of mind could not be regarded as solidly stable. In less than a few years, it had already degraded. He became nothing more than an influential clan's honored guest and began to enjoy the world's luxurious splendors. As a result, his immortal's heart had gradually weakened. Regarding traitors of the clan, after 100 years, disciples like Yu Jitong will have their names formally removed from the clan registry. The act of doing so was equivalent to declaring that the traitorous disciples would have no more connections to the clan and would be considered immortal. Disciples like Yu Jitong would never be able to return to the clan. Unless one of his direct descendants had an enormous potential to walk the path of an immortal cultivator, he would not be allowed to return. If this carried on, Yu Jitong would have lost the chance to cultivate, but living a life of decadence and wallowing in riches would still be highly possible. This was an extremely common occurrence for cultivators who failed to break through to the stage of foundation establishment, so there was nothing to make a fuss of. One day, it was unknown whether the heavens were helping him or if Lady Luck decided to smile on him, but as Yu Jitong was strolling the streets of the city, he decided to enter a spiritual pharmacy on a whim. To his surprise, he actually spotted a rarely seen and extremely beneficial spiritual herb there. The name of the spiritual herb was known as the blood spirit grass. For those who were not familiar with herbs, it was extremely common for them not to recognize this, since the external appearance of this grass was about 95% similar to the blood sweat grass. Who knew that the ignorant shopkeeper would actually place the two grasses together? Yu Jitong was naturally exulted as he saw the blood spirit grass. With this spiritual herb, it would greatly increase his chances of breaking through the bottleneck. Ingesting the spiritual herb was akin to fanning flames. The sparks in his immortal's heart gradually started to blaze again. Who would have known that just when he was about to purchase the herb, another immortal cultivator also entered the shop. Seeing such a beneficial spiritual herb in front of him, he fought with Yu Jitong over the purchase of the spirit blood grass. Seeing this situation, the shop owner offered them a solution. The herb would be sold to the one who offered the highest bid. Eventually, Yu Jitong managed to win the bidding war by a narrow margin. After winning, he hurriedly left the store. He knew that the other cultivator would not give up so easily. Yu Jitong was in a panic, and decided that returning to his clan was the safest way to proceed. But halfway on the road, the other cultivator caught up to him and a huge battle began. The other cultivator was stronger than him, and thus Yu Jitong ended up suffering a miserable defeat. Yet, he was still unwilling to relinquish the spiritual herb. Gritting his teeth, Yu Jitong decided to use his last resort. He took out his only remaining treasure bestowed on him by his clan, putting on a deceptively brave front by showing a fake intent to perish together with his opponent. This way, Yu Jitong managed to scare the other cultivator away. Even though he had achieved victory, the current him was riddled with injuries. It was at this moment where he met Dr. Mo, who had also been trying to find a remedy for himself. With his lack of experience, Yu Jitong did not know the saying that human hearts are tough to fathom, and he stupidly revealed the fact that he was carrying an extremely beneficial spiritual herb. Just like that, Yu Jitong invited a calamity upon himself. He did not know that Dr. Mo was desperately searching for a cure for his own injuries. Now that he knew there might be an efficacious spiritual herb on Yu Jitong's body which might have the chance to save him, he exhausted all his methods trying to obtain the herb from Yu Jitong. However, how could Yu Jitong agree? He too needed the miraculous effects of the herbs to recover from his injuries. The current him was no different from an ordinary mortal. Seeing that his efforts of negotiation was unsuccessful, hatred formed in his heart. Dr. Mo calmed himself and appeared to accept his fate with a sigh. He was cunning and could afford to wait for a good opportunity. Dr. Mo decided to poison Yu Jitong to death. In normal circumstances, ordinary poisons would all be ineffective against Yu Jitong. However, the poison Dr. Mo administered was an unusual poison with no antidote. Already suffering from heavy injuries, Yu Jitong now had the potent poison to contend with. Struggling with every movement, he appeared to be on the verge of dying. It was at this moment that Dr. Mo revealed himself and walked swaggeringly towards Yu Jitong. Only now did Yu Jitong understand what had happened. There was no way he would allow Dr. Mo to succeed just like that. Even in such dire circumstances, he must find a way to persist longer. Under great anger, he had no choice but to utilize the blood soul curse, transmuting all the blood essence and spiritual energy in his body into a blood curse, spitting it on Dr. Mo's face. After which, Yu Jitong's soul swiftly departed his body. After his soul departed his body, only did Yu Jitong realize that he had made a mistake. He had forgotten to prepare a soul-binding treasure, so there was no item that could temporarily house his soul. With no choice, he had to enter Dr. Mo's body. After all, souls without something to tether them would inevitably dissipate. As the blood curse splattered on Dr. Mo's face, he was terrified, but after he calmed down and realized that nothing strange is going to happen, he relaxed his guard and stopped thinking about it. Based on his rudimentary knowledge of medicinal pills, he searched Yu Jitong's corpse and immediately consumed any pills he could find. As expected, pills from an immortal cultivator were unusually effective. After he consumed the pills, Dr. Mo's internal chi was restored. Dr. Mo laughed crazily, and took Yu Jitong's belongings, including the Eternal Spring Arts, which he could not understand. Before he left, Dr. Mo decided to make a comeback and gain revenge on all his enemies after his injuries recovered.